Hello and welcome to a live Kerfefe break on Deprogram with Carrie Smith. Today's Friday, December 16th, and my co-hosts today are Brentley and Daniel from Dangerous Rhetoric. Welcome, guys.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going good.
Very almost Christmas.
I know. I wish Christmas was 2 months long.
It's a good time.
I've been so busy. I haven't even really. I just realized it was. I'm like, oh my god, Christmas is 10 days away. I gotta order presents, and it's always waiting to. I always wait till last minute.
Yeah,
so.
I tell myself I'm not going to. I'm like, I'm gonna do it early, and I bought a couple things early, and then it came up to December, and then I just keep putting it off and have all these things I still have to get. Yes. And money's really tight too, so it's like. But I also I feel like that's when it's most important to give is when it's hard to do it. I think it matters more.
Yeah. Also, you can make things, although I'm not the best at making things. But people, whenever somebody this gift was from a friend, my friend Karen, this is crocheted, it's not knit. And anytime I get something that's handmade from people, I'm like, wow, the time you put into that. Although I say that you can make something to save money, but actually the knitters have told me with the yarn that they use is pretty expensive.
that time that goes into it, that time is money, as they say. So
yeah, you can make cookies.
You can make cookies. That's true. I've done that before.
My grandma used to make pastelles, which are these really thin Italian cookie with a little powdered sugar on top, and they just crumble. I can remember everything about them, but we can't have them anymore because since she's passed away, it's the ability. My mom can make them, but she can't make them just as thin and perfect as my grandma used to do it.
Yeah, I did cookies 1 year. I used to be a substitute teacher. So I worked, in a school full time, and my friend and I, that was one of the things we did. We got together, we made cookies, and we wrapped them up in little nice plastics with little.
It's a good gift.
Good people.
Yeah, I found my friend Tina. She's also our housemate. She lives with us, but back before when she was just my friend and trainer. That's how I originally met her, 10 years ago or something. She was my trainer. I found a really good recipe for Christmas time for health conscious people, and it's some kind of health conscious Thin Mints. I haven't made it since, but it was good. I should pull that out.
I love Thin Mints.
Yeah.
I'm a fan.
Well, you guys, welcome. If you're hanging out with us today in the chat, we're going to have some fun. We are going to cover some more of the Twitter files. I think, parts 4 and 5, we haven't really talked about on Deprogrammed yet. So we're going to go over that. You guys tell people where they can find you.
DangerousRhetoric.com is sort of our home base. We can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Rumble, Odyssey, all the Amazon podcast things, not on Apple. Apple doesn't like me.
Everything on our website is hosted through Rumble. So all that stuff should be fine. We got rid of most of our back catalog from YouTube because we were trying to avoid another strike. So, you can find all of our most recent episodes on YouTube. But if you want the back catalog, you have to go on our website, which is all hosted through Rumble. But one of the strikes is gone now. So now we only have one. So we're kind of safe-ish. And by the time that gets eliminated, I think in January, the second week, then we can try to monetize, and then we'll get demonetized probably. That's probably
yes. That's exactly what's going to happen. Why are they coming so hard after you?
Who knows? It's hard to say. It's the first thing that we got in trouble for was we had Alexis Saved Her Myself on, and she went viral for doing this video where she spoke out against some of the medical policies at the time. I won't get into specifics, but she went viral. We had her on the show. We showed the clip that she went viral on.
That was a warning, right?
Ding. Yeah, that was our first warning. We got dinged for COVID, and then we got dinged for COVID again. I can't remember which episode specifically. And then we got dinged for election 2020 misinformation because we had, I don't want to get into it.
Well, that was the episode with Eric Abinante, Lila Hart's husband.
Lila Hart's husband,
and they banned him on Twitter.
They were talking about
They banned him on Twitter. I'm shocked. He's got a documentary. I don't even want to utter the phrase because it will invoke the Eye of Sauron.
That was why that episode got removed, though, was because of the contents of
we kept uttering the F word a bunch, and it's not the curse word. It's the one that ends in a D that you can't say.
Yeah, you're not allowed in relation to elections. You're not allowed to talk.
Oh.
Apparently. Yeah. And then the other one was from our episode with Mark Changizi. I don't know if you know Mark Changizi.
Dr. Mark.
Dr. Mark.
Don't know him.
He's a scientist. You should talk to him, actually.
He's super based.
He would be a great guest to have on your show. Very based.
Neuroscientist.
We had him on twice, and for his second episode, he was talking about his new book, which has a lot to do with emotional expressions. And we were talking about that in relation to the masks and the mask policies and how it blocks people from reading faces and how much information we pass on to each other and communicating through our facial expressions, and how this is affecting children and their upbringing, development, etc. So we think that was probably why they
even though they changed the mask stuff. But so you can find us pretty much anywhere, and our website's dangerousrhetoric.com. And then I'm on Twitter at Kapopolis, and Daniel's on Twitter. You can find us everywhere. It's easy.
Cool. We've got it up on the screen here. Thank you to Sisters and Some Yarn.
Links.
Also, I should say I didn't do any announcements, but somebody in chat, I think it was Sue, thought Buck Angel was today. No, Buck Angel is on Monday. So if you guys want to come back on Monday, my guest host Monday is Buck Angel. And then I think on Friday, I'm going to be talking to Jake Wiskershin. You know that marriage and family therapist?
Yes, we've seen him on the Disaffected podcast, actually.
Okay. He's great.
I know Buck Angel. I would like to talk to Buck. That would be very interesting.
Buck's awesome, and I haven't talked to him in a while, so that's going to be fun. So speaking of the Disaffected podcast, right before we started, you were telling me that he just got banned from Patreon?
Yep, they have totally nuked him off Patreon. Patreon was about 90% of the Disaffected podcast's revenue income, and they, didn't really give an explanation. They said it was off-platform activity, which basically, they didn't like something in one of his shows on YouTube. And this is the thing with Patreon, as we saw with Sargon and other creators. They will ban you for content that if they don't like something you say on YouTube, on Spotify, on Twitter, on TikTok, and somebody gets reported or whatever, they'll nuke you. They'll just take you off completely.
Russell also just asked in the chat, did you guys get banned from TikTok? Yes, we did get banned.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Brent was running.
I was driving. I was hitting the Paul Pelosi story a little too hard. And they didn't like that.
Yeah, so they totally suspended us. And I think we were almost at like 3,000 followers or something on there.
Yeah, it was upwards of 3,000.
I don't know. It's been from the very start. It's been very difficult.
I'm back on TikTok. I'm doing an its_Brantley account now.
It's just been very difficult to grow the show at all because of this stuff. Like Instagram, I think I mentioned this on here before, but like for 8 months straight, I could not tag my own
Instagram hates us
podcast
too.
On any posts, any stories, or anything on Instagram. And I noticed that mysteriously disappeared around the time that Elon announced he was going to try to buy Twitter. So I was like, that's kind of weird. I'm just like, are they freaking out now? Is Zuckerberg freaking out? He's going to try to buy him out too? I don't know.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden they lifted that and we were able to tag things again. But it's stuff like that, and I'm convinced it's because we went to DC on Jan 6th. I don't know. I think the feds just have it out for us or some shit, and they're like trying to make it as hard as possible. I don't know. Maybe I'm just paranoid. I have no idea.
Well, I think that now, because they saw what happened with the power of alternative media in the 2016 election, and figures at the time like Milo Yiannopoulos, and I'm trying to think of who else was in the great banning after the Alex Jones. I think what they did after that is, instead of waiting to see who does amass a big following, they just started targeting small channels.
Yes. Yeah, I'm convinced of that too. They were trying to nip us in the bud.
Cut the tall grass.
Yeah, because it's more difficult once you already have a following to silence you. You could always tap back into your following, get them to go somewhere else, etc. But if you don't even get a chance to grow one, and if they think that you might be a potential threat in growing one, I think that's exactly what they were doing. They were cracking down on any small creators, newer podcasts and shows that were coming up, and just trying to suppress those as much as possible.
I think so. They were just like casting a wide net, and that's what they've been doing since.
Yeah, they're suggesting locals. There's a lot of alternatives. I have a Ko-fi account. The Josh and Kevin right now are sort of just like contemplating their options.
Yeah.
I think they're on. I'll have to figure out where they're at.
I have Patreon, and I have 6 patrons. Russell's one of them, actually. Shout out to Russell, thank you. But now I'm just like, I'm questioning whether or not I should even like bother trying to continue growing that,
because they'll just snatch it from me. Yeah.
As soon as it gets big enough, or Dangerous Rhetoric becomes bigger, and I think it will be, because we're definitely not going to stop. It's probably only a matter of time before they target me and then just remove me from there. So it's like, maybe I should just try to like switch all my patrons onto like Subscribestar or something else like that. I don't know.
I should mention, because I always forget to mention it, Deprogrammed, we have a Subscribestar. We do have a Patreon, but Subscribestar is probably more reliable at this point, because Patreon will just take you down. If you are a fan of the show and you want to support us financially, you can do so there. And I'm working on, they may be late, but Christmas cards for all the subscribers. So there'll be a little something special. Maybe if it comes after Christmas, you can consider it a Happy New Year's card. Those are going to go out on Monday. I'm like you guys. I'm like, I'm running out of time. What's happening?
It's fine. People are busy.
Yeah. People are busy. It's also, time is just, it moves faster the older we get, and
feels that way.
It feels that yeah, and it's true. It's overall like a year is a shorter percentage of your whole lifespan, so like it just moves.
There's just so much happening all the time between the news cycles, and it's like impossible.
Look at everything that's happened since last time we talked to Gary on Deprogrammed. We were talking about Kanye last time, and since then, look at all the stuff that has happened with him
alone. Everything with all this stuff coming out. I mean, now I think today they're gonna do Twitter Files 6. I think they're
I think they're on to 6. Yeah. So I've just been covering them as we get to them. So we've talked about on Deprogrammed 1 through 3. And today we're going to do 4 and 5. Let's see. I've got Twitter Files Part 4. Have you guys read through this one yet?
I've been following with them as they come out, trying to get like the general takeaway from each bit.
I know the gist. I don't think I read through all of them, but we were watching Nina Infinity's channel when they were dropping live. So she like does a whole stream, and so each tweet is coming out.
Yeah.
We'll be like talking about it.
I before we pull that up, I want to talk about something frivolous.
Yes, let's keep it light and fluffy. We're only 13 minutes in here.
So I'm going to be on Friday Night Tights after this. So you guys tune in if you're fans of the show, and it's going to be fun. And as part of tonight's episode, Gary was like, we're going to talk about Avatar 2, so go and see it. And first of all, did you guys see the first one?
Oh yeah, I saw the first one. Haven't seen the second one. I've been trying to schedule it, actually. I kind of want to go see it in IMAX 3D.
I saw the first in theaters when it came out. I remember that. It was a big deal.
I liked it. I thought it was fun, and the 3D was good, because we have this really nice, here at Lincoln Center, there's a really big IMAX theater, and it's relatively new. So when we saw that, in that theater, and it was very, very pretty. So
it is very pretty. The first one, just to refresh my memory, we watched that one last week or earlier this week, and I rewatched it, and I had not seen it since it came out. I'm not really a fan. I get it is visually very pretty, but I just thought the writing.
It's Pocahontas in space.
Yeah,
it's just Pocahontas in space.
Or Dances with Wolves. Yeah. But I thought actually the second one, I was thinking this is gonna suck, because I read an interview with James Cameron. We covered this on Pop Culture, where he was talking about how Avatar 2 is the most feminist movie. It's more feminist than all of the superhero movies that have the female leads now. He said, because my lead is pregnant. Well, not the lead, but one of the main characters. She's 6 months pregnant when she goes into battle. And he talked about 6 months pregnancy thing for a while, and the interview was weird. He's like, Wonder Woman and Captain Marvel, they're women and they're fighting battles, but are they 6 months pregnant? No. Like,
First of all, that's like very irresponsible of you to be out there fighting while you're 6 months pregnant. Like,
yeah, and he's like, but that's his I guess bar for how feminist you are.
that's
I
okay.
just thought that was hilarious. And then
Sisters is funny because she's like, now they care about pregnant women.
Yeah.
So surprising to me, I actually enjoyed it. My only complaint is it's way too long. It's like over 3 hours.
The second one.
Yeah. Man, we saw it last night. And it just, it's just way too long. But it is visually very pretty and stunning, very well done, like visually. But I think it's better than the first one. And it actually wasn't, I didn't think it was woke. I might have a controversial opinion on the show tonight with everyone else, but I didn't think it was that woke, even if he was trying to make it woke. It was actually more about traditional family values. It was all about like this. One of the big themes was that, and it kept repeating this: a father's job is to protect his family.
So based.
Yeah, it was so based in a way.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm not going to give any spoilers. Just say you might be surprised that.
Okay.
Yeah, you might actually be like, "Wow, I can't believe he was trying to make it woke." And
we haven't been to the theater since we've came back to New York, and I've been wanting to see something that's worth seeing in IMAX. So I think it'll be fun. I'll get some.
I feel like we did see a movie since we've been back. I just can't remember what the hell it was.
I don't think so.
I don't know. It has been a while.
We went to shows. We went to the show up there.
Oh, no.
Actually,
I think we went to the movies in Florida.
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
I saw Spider-Man in Florida.
That's what I'm thinking.
Spider-Man.
Yeah.
We were trying to remember, my husband and I, the last movie we had seen in the theater. I think it was The Joker, like several years ago.
Yeah.
So before Spider-Man, it was the Invisible Man was the last time I'd been to the movies.
I didn't go to that. I think
you didn't go. I took Little Jack.
But yeah, the last movie I remember seeing in a theater was the latest Spider-Man movie, and that was in Florida, which is why we went. Yeah.
Was that one good?
It was pretty good.
Yeah, that was No Way Home. That was the one with the multiple Spider-Mans.
Oh, okay.
I liked it.
It was fun.
Well, that's my sort of mini review of the film. It was surprisingly okay. And then there are some really silly, funny moments in it as well. So you'll still laugh and be like, "Wait, what?" That one of the bad guys is Nurse Jackie.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the mom from The Sopranos.
Love it.
Oh, that's so interesting. I mean, I love her. It's Robin Wright, I think is her name.
No, Robin Wright was from House of Cards.
Oh, I'm getting confused with the
Princess
other one.
Bride, right?
Nurse Jackie. What's her name?
Jackie. Oh yeah, I can't remember her name. Eddie Falco.
Yes.
Eddie Falco.
Yeah.
Is that really her name?
Yeah. She's great. She's amazing.
Eddie Falco. I loved her in Sopranos.
Yeah, Leah's got it in the chat too.
I love Sopranos. Like, I'm from New Jersey, so we were all about that shit. Like,
she's awesome. She's a great actress. Nurse Jackie, kind of underrated.
Yeah.
Series, in my opinion.
I never saw it. I never saw Nurse Jackie.
It's a Showtime show, first of all, and then second of all, it's very sort of like the whole. One of the themes is that she's like a drug addict, basically. And
she did this after Sopranos.
Yeah.
Well, that was a surprise. I didn't know she was going to be in it. Okay, so let's bring up these Twitter files. We're just going to do what I've been doing is what most people I think are doing is reading through them. Unfortunately, even though, and I think last time you guys were on, we talked about how in some ways this is bigger than Watergate. Unfortunately, the mainstream media is not covering it.
Well, there's a joke. They keep calling it a nothing burger. And there's this meme. I'll have to show it to you. I'll send it to you so you can share it.
Elon's not helping either by dropping these things on Friday nights. You know what I mean? It's like not a good press day.
Yeah, the Friday timing is bad for the news cycle, but honestly, it shouldn't really matter because it's so of import, and he's handing it off to Barry Weiss, Matt Taibbi, like Michael Schellenberger, like these people are not they're known, they have audiences, they're established in their fields.
I suspect he's also trying to drop it on days and times where, more regular people are going to be on Twitter and looking at it. You know what I mean? And he's probably less concerned about how the press is going to cover it or how much coverage they'll give to it, and more concerned about how many eyes he can get on it from just normal people.
Well, and this is what the press does, right? Anything that's inconvenient for their narrative control, they squelch, they ignore it, they just turn it down a little bit. And that's kind of what they've been doing with the Twitter files. They've been basically saying it's a nothing burger, that nothing of consequence has come out. Meanwhile, anybody who's been paying attention is like, this proves that the FBI was collaborating with not only Facebook, but also Twitter and likely other companies like YouTube in order to put the clamp down on certain stories like the Hunter Biden laptop story. And when it comes to, certain medical opinions that are unpopular, depending on the establishment, what their narrative is du jour, because it changes, right? How many times over the last few years did the acceptable narrative change? Like dozens.
I don't know. I'm also not surprised by any of it. Like so far, it hasn't really revealed much of anything that we didn't know or suspect.
But it proved it.
It proved it, and it verified those things, which is good. I do think it's good, but none of it was like shocking to me. And frankly, I think, if anyone was shocked that the FBI was somehow involved with censorship on Twitter, I'm like, you guys have not been paying very close attention, to
that's
how
the thing.
things
A lot
have
of people were not paying attention.
That's the thing, though. It's only surprising, I think, to people who are still in that left mainstream echo chamber, who are open-minded enough to at least look at it. And that's maybe not that many people in that world, but the ones who I know who are in that world who have looked at some of it are kind of like, this is crazy. And I'm like, yeah. And it's surprising to them, but that's because they're in a bubble. I mean, I have a friend in real life who she's in that bubble. And I remember we were at her house for this party, and she was asking me, she's open-minded. She was asking me some questions about stuff, about the way I view the world. Cause I don't know, she's trying to understand me. Like, is she a right winger? Is she this, and she was surprised that when I mentioned censorship online, like if you're in that bubble, you probably don't even realize how many people, like we just talked about at the beginning of the show, who get deplatformed, like small channels,
or just shadow ban. It's not
shadow
even
ban
platform, because it's like shadow banning is like a light way of deplatforming you. They just relegate you to this dark corner of the internet, and then they can, then they have plausible deniability. It could be like, oh well, we didn't kick you off, we didn't ban you.
Well, that's what they did with even the word shadow banning, right?
Yeah.
We understand shadow banning out here in regular space as any sort of down regulating or limiting your reach or your exposure, your ability to communicate to your followers. They were doing that. They admitted it, but they the way they got around it was they redefined shadow banning like they do with every other term in the English language.
They gave it another name. They call it visibility filtering.
I think Carrie's correct though, that the people who are not very politically outspoken about any of these controversial subjects, as far as they're concerned, it's not happening. They don't even know that this is a thing because they don't feel it, they don't experience it. And if they're in that bubble, that echo chamber with others like them, they definitely don't know, because all those other people like them aren't rocking the boat, aren't pushing the envelope, so they're not experiencing it, so they're not hearing about it. So it probably does shock them to encounter like a regular person like you or like us, who tell them like, well, no, I've been kicked off here, I've been shadow banned on here, and my reach has been limited on this platform, that platform. I think it does surprise them.
You guys,
ordering is here.
Yeah,
I know. Holy crap!
Jeremy, come on, Dangerous Rhetoric, please. Been trying to get him on.
Jeremy just gave us
super chat,
a big Christmas present for Deprogram. Thank you for $100 super chat. Merry Christmas, Carrie. I had so much fun hanging out with him. Impromptu hanging out with him a few weeks ago, and I wanted to tell you, if you're still watching, Jeremy, he was like, do you have anything to plug at the end? I was like, not of mine, but can I plug my husband's music video? and he let me plug it, and then a bunch of people went over to it, and in the comments it was so fun to see all these people were like, hey, I came here from the quartering. It was awesome. Anyway,
later.
thank you very much.
Santa has much work to do. I'm here. Yeah, Jeremy's great. I love the quartering. Brent and I have been watching.
His show is
for years,
based.
and we'd love to have him on Dangerous Rhetoric. So
He's very nice.
Maybe when he's busy.
Yeah, he's always busy.
Everybody's busy.
He's always
that's life,
dude. He bangs out like 3-4 videos a day.
So many
like,
videos.
Yeah.
Holy moly!
The Canadian Conservative, thank you, sir, gives us 10 Canadian buckaroos and says, "Gotta get back to work. Have a good afternoon, everyone." Thank you very much.
Russell.
Russell's a sweetheart.
Yeah, Russell's a great guy. We've had him on the show as well, and we'll have to do a follow-up episode with him. Actually, I think he's rebranding. He used to be a coffee break conversation.
Coffee breath conversation.
Coffee breath
Canadian.
Oh, okay. I know him. We're supposed to talk.
Yeah,
Thank you for reminding me. Robert Lowry says Merry Christmas and Christmas Kwanzaa. My knitters. I'm very grateful to Robert. He came to our first house concert that my husband and I put on the 9th, and he drove all the way from, well, I won't say what state, but he drove from far away, and then he took photos and video, and it was amazing. It was very, very nice to have him here. Okay. Okay, Twitter files.
Love it.
Yeah, back to
I just want to do Christmas episodes.
Yeah,
major news, who cares? We're having a good time. We're saying hi.
Okay, Michael Schellenberger. We're going to cover part 4 and 5 today because we haven't covered this on the program yet. We got up to part 3, and this is a good read through. If you are someone on the left, and I know people on the left do watch my shows. Sometimes they watch to hate, and then other times they watch because they're on the left, but they're in that bubble and they're just curious, like the friend I mentioned. So we're going to read through all this stuff because it's more fun reading it with friends. And this is part 4 from Michael Schellenberger. It says the removal of Donald Trump, January 7th. As the pressure builds, Twitter executives build the case for a permanent ban. On January 7th, senior Twitter execs create justifications to ban Trump, seek a change of policy for Trump alone, distinct from other political leaders, expressed no concern for the free speech or democracy implications of a ban. This Twitter files is reported with L. Woodhouse. Okay, for those catching up, please see, and then he links to part 1, which was about how Twitter executives violated their own policies to prevent the spread of accurate information about Hunter Biden's laptop. And part 2, where Barry Weiss showed how senior Twitter execs created secret blacklists to de-amplify, and that's what they called it's shadow banning, but they call it
shadow ban. De-amplify.
De-amplify disfavored Twitter users. Okay, part 3, where Matt Taibbi documents how senior Twitter execs censored tweets by Trump in the run-up to the November 2020 election while regularly engaging with representatives of U.S. government law enforcement agencies. That was a crazy one. And I'm just going to read through part 4 quickly, and then we can talk about it. We can also pause during parts of it if there's something we really want to comment on. Okay. For years, Twitter had resisted calls to ban Trump. Blocking a world leader from Twitter, it wrote in 2018, quote, would hide important information and hamper necessary discussion around their words and actions. But after the events of January 6th, the internal and external pressure on Twitter CEO Jack grows. Former First Lady Michelle Obama, tech journalist Kara Swisher, the ADL, high-tech VC Chris Sacca, and many others publicly called on Twitter to permanently ban Trump.
And we should just note that all of these high-profile people are likely doing that in coordination. They get email packets sent out to their publicist. Their publicist sends them the talking points. This is all very expedited and established. And I think there was a big controversy when I think it was Greta or someone leaked one of the media packets on their climate stuff, and they sort of let it out that they were all, basically getting these packets.
Yeah, when I used to work in entertainment, so I was a manager. I mostly worked with comedians, and my business partner worked with musicians. And it's not like it's a secret. We all, because I was in that social justice world, I probably had more contacts than the average manager in that world. But everyone did. And there were all these different groups. I was on the board of a group called Air Traffic Control. And the whole purpose of that nonprofit was to disseminate action points, talking points, activist information to the teams of celebrities. Like everything that group was for. And then there were other other issue specific nonprofits that we would get stuff directly from, and you would just pass it on to your artist, in my case, my comedians, and they would sometimes tweet it or we would tweet it for them, and that's why their messaging all sounds the same, like you said, because there are organizations that put together these talking points and send them out.
Yeah. And then if you're, Jack at Twitter and you don't know that, or you're just, somebody, some company getting bombarded by all these, all these celebrities and everybody, so you think there's a consensus out there when actually that perception is being manufactured totally to manipulate your behavior.
Yeah.
Yeah. It reminds me of the tweets that they put out, like Bill Clinton's last tweet. I've tested positive for COVID. I've had mild symptoms, but I'm doing fine overall and keeping myself busy at home. I'm grateful to be vaccinated and boosted, which has kept my case mild, and I urge everyone to do the same, especially as we move into the winter months. It's like
so canned.
It's like
it was a script.
You didn't write that. There's no way you write that. Someone gave
Nobody talks like that.
No one talks like that. And it's just, they all post the same tweet. And it feels like a propaganda campaign. And they're given like a packet or some kind of thing. And they're said, this is what.
Well, let's be real. You can't rewrite 280 characters that many different ways if you're trying to say the same thing.
True. No. But they're definitely all saying the same thing.
They're definitely all saying
there's a reason for it.
That script that Bill Clinton put out, it was funny because by the time he tweeted that, so many of them had done it that it just at first I thought it was a parody, like a parody of Bill Clinton just being funny, but no, it's really him going ahead with the script.
I don't think Bill Clinton is keeping up with what's on Twitter or where people like us who are, we are social media news addicts. We are on the cutting edge, paying attention to all this stuff, and it literally causes like brain damage.
That's how we notice these things.
Like we're constantly tuned into everything.
Like Andy No responded to that Bill Clinton tweet, and he said, "Is this copy pasted from somewhere? I've read the same tweet over and over from Democrat politicians for months."
Yeah. It's sitting in their drafts folder of their inbox for whenever they get COVID.
Yeah.
Okay, let's continue. If you're just tuning in, we're reading through Twitter Files Part 4. These were posted by Michael Schellenberger. Dorsey was on vacation in French Polynesia the week of January 4th through 8th, 2021. He phoned into meetings, but also delegated much of the handling of the situation to senior executives. What's his name?
Yoel
Roth.
That guy.
Twitter's global head of trust and safety. And I can never say her name. Vijaya Gadi. Vijaya, head of legal policy and trust. As context, it's important to understand that Twitter's staff and senior executives were overwhelmingly progressive. In 2018, this is really interesting. In 2018, 2020, and 2022, 96%, 98%, and then 99% in those years of Twitter's staff's political donations went to Democrats. This was in one of the other Twitter Files parts that we already went through. But what's really funny is by the time you get to 2022, if you look at this chart, so in 2018, Twitter employees gave $11,000 to Republicans compared to $295,722 they gave to Democrats. By the time you get to 2022, they gave $165,969 to Democrats and only $451 to Republicans.
God.
And I just wonder, did we already make this joke? Who is that guy at Twitter that gave $451?
One guy. Well, because it's obviously sort of like a Fahrenheit 451 reference. At least that's how I'm seeing it.
I
don't know. Maybe he just liked that and he wrote the check for. I don't know. It could be a total coincidence.
I don't know. Maybe not. It's a good point, though.
Somebody on a previous stream when I covered this was like, maybe it's like the based janitor at Twitter.
The one guy.
Even the janitor probably is making six figures at Twitter. He can afford to get political.
Exactly.
Yeah, and he was probably doing more work than most of the staff that Elon fired.
Yeah, Davina Duckworth in the comments says, I believe it's illegal to hire by political bias. But what ends up happening is that you just leave. Republicans at Twitter, if it's something like 90% plus and you realize you can't even talk, honestly about your opinions without having to worry about getting fired or, not getting that promotion or whatever.
They make it uncomfortable. They make it uncomfortable for you. Arnwana said it was Ligma
Johnson. The Ligma Johnson joke. That was so funny.
I love that Elon invited those to headquarters and took a picture with them, and then the media started covering it as if these were real people.
Yes.
That name, like, I mean, obviously they're real people, but like covering them and using that as their name, like, they don't understand jokes. They don't understand how to meme. Like,
they don't get it. I thought that was hilarious. Yeah, I saw a clip of a television interview where the journalist had a picture on the screen of Elon with Ligma Johnson and was saying, look, he invited these fired employees back. Like, the media is a joke.
They're a joke. They are. Did you see recently Project Veritas? They put out a video where James O'Keefe dressed up as Santa, and he went out in front of the New York Times headquarters, and any journalists that were coming in and out of the building, coming to or leaving work, he was stopping them and trying to talk to them and handing them coal and asking them if they were a good journalist this year. Like, it's really funny. Go watch it.
I love it.
Yeah.
I also think of a little bit of Alex Stein. How funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. Trolling and culture jamming. It is so powerful. Yeah. And it really requires that sort of willingness to sacrifice yourself on the altar of being ridiculous. Comedy, not caring what, how you appear to the general public, or, just letting your ego go and just being ridiculous for the sake of the culture war. It's powerful.
Okay, we're going to continue. Michael Schellenberger, this is Twitter Files Part 4. In 2017, Roth tweeted that this is this is so stupid. This is Yoel Roth from Twitter. He tweeted that there were, quote, all caps, actual Nazis in the White House, end quote. In April of 2022, Roth told a colleague that his goal, quote, is to drive change in the world, end quote, which is why he decided not to become an academic. And then you can see this tweet from 2017. Yes, that person in the pink hat is clearly a bigger threat to your brand of feminism than actual Nazis in the White House. Oh my gosh. This thing that he says here about his goal being to drive change in the world, that's a big part of how the social justice indoctrination turns people into little mouthpieces for the ideology, a lot of times for ideas that they haven't even taken the time to examine. And that's what happened to me in college, is that instead of learning, I think it was Nicholas Christakis, the professor from Yale, who was it him? Oh, no. It was Jonathan Haidt. I heard Jonathan Haidt do a lecture once where he was saying there's two different ways of thinking of college, the purpose of college. One is like the John Stuart Mill approach, where the purpose of college is or education in general is to teach people how to think, not what to think.
Mm-hmm.
And the Marx way, the Marx view of academia or college, is to teach people what to think, to turn them into little activists. And that's what happened to me. I became an activist. I was told what to think. And I see that here in this guy's tweets.
Yeah. And it's also important to remember that he's relatively young. Yoel Roth is still in his 20s, I think. Probably, I think he's in his late 20s now. But young guy, catapulted from his PhD program to head of like the trust and safety, like almost he's the head of trust and safety, or
he was
the head of trust
he's
and
not
safety.
Anymore.
Twitter's former head of trust and safety. So he's a young guy, and also he had some questionable content out there. There was as soon as everybody realized he was one of the major players in the Twitter files,
started digging through all his old tweets.
Yeah, digging through his old tweets, digging through his thesis. He's he's got a PhD. And his thesis talked about there was one section where he talked about minors being on Grindr or other hookup apps, and how instead of just figuring out ways to prevent that, which is what we should be doing, He was arguing that we need to make, spaces where queer youth can safely, interact with one another without, fear of, predation or whatever. But like, that's obviously not possible, because anytime you have queer youth, you're going to have predators pretending to be such in order to infiltrate and hunt.
Oh yeah.
So it's very tough. The people were calling Yoel Roth the P word. I wouldn't go that far. However,
we don't have evidence for that.
He was in charge, of the censorship team at Twitter for a very long time, and a lot of that, CSAM material remained up under his leadership.
And also wasn't he part of the decision to ban using the word groomer?
Yes, he was.
Yes. So
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that was Vijaya, basically.
That's also sus.
That might come up in this one or the next one.
Also very suspicious.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Just as a quick aside, I've told you guys before, I think I'm in a lot of these Facebook groups for parents of so-called trans kids, and many of them have, 70,000, upwards of 70,000 people in them. And they're very cult-like. If you don't agree with the orthodoxy of how you should react as a parent if your child says they're trans, if you don't agree with it, you get booted. Like, they only accept parents who are willing to do exactly what they say, which is immediate validation and then pushing into medical and surgical transition. And
demons.
In those, yeah.
Demons.
In those groups, there are a lot. I've seen so many horror stories that parents share about what you just said, about the predation that happens online. And it's almost like, because they're not allowed to have differing opinions, they never really come to the root problem, but they'll post stories. One story was a woman who said her daughter, and I can't remember how old now, I think maybe 13, like preteen daughter who has, says she's a boy. So she kept saying, my son was kidnapped by a man that he met online in some kind of group for trans youth. And fortunately, she got her daughter back, but she was raped. He took her to a hotel, and that was one of the worst stories I saw in there. But there were other stories that were pretty similar. And then at the end of when they would share these things in Vent, they would usually say, even that mom, even after that happened, was saying, I really don't want to restrict, where she was calling her daughter where he can go online, though, because he needs that support. He needs that. And so it's sort of this weird blind spot that they've created where their natural instincts to protect their kids are not being kicked in or turned on, because they're like, but my kid might commit suicide if I don't let them go online in all these forums.
You are refusing to parent. That's what's going on here. And part of parenting is you put your foot down and you stop your kids from doing things that are stupid. And then when they're that young, yes, you should be restricting to some extent their internet use, or at least monitoring it to some extent. But no, they're refusing to parent. They want to be liked at the same time, and it's like, you're not always going to be liked as a parent. That's not how parenting works. There are going to be phases where your teenager is going to say, I hate you. I'm going to kill myself if you don't let me do this, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And, how many of us have reacted in that way to our parents over something that they wouldn't let us do? I know a lot of people who have. So, and how many of those people actually, offed themselves? Very, very few of them, So you can't just cave in to your kid every single time they're making threats like that. Go take them to get real psychological assistance.
Well, the problem is, in a lot of states, if you take a child to get psychological assistance, they will affirm the child, and any in Washington State, for example, is incredibly dangerous state for parents, because they get the kids early in public school. They teach them about the gender bending. The children bend the gender. And then if the parent gives any pushback, the state will come and either take the child from the parents, or the child can have their medical stuff completely emancipated at age 12. 12 is the age a child can decide that they're going to, emancipate themselves and begin to take care of their own medical care. And mom and dad must still pay for it too, which is the interesting part. And they don't have the right to know about any of the details of what the medical care is if the child wishes to keep it secret from the parents.
Evil.
Oh.
There are demons at the helm right now.
Yeah.
Oh, and that's Washington State. It's an extreme example, but it is an example. It's like looking into the future if we don't, all activate our inner Billboard Chris and, do whatever we can to just speak out against the crazy. So thank God for Billboard Chris and people like him and Elon doing the good work of exposing all this stuff.
Yeah, but what about what Yoel's saying here? There are actual Nazis. White House, Brent. We have to stop them. That's the real threat.
This is characteristic of the left. They use semantic games to lie. They there were no actual Nazis in the White House in 2017. This is just rank hyperbole and obvious equivocation in order to activate the emotions that are associated with the Holocaust.
You know where there were actual Nazis, though? In the Ukraine military, who we were funneling money to, but
we're going to get banned. Let's stop.
Careful.
Be careful. Okay, let's continue. Thanks for letting us have that aside. Okay. Michael Schellenberger, we're reading Twitter Files Part 4. He says, on January 7th, Jack emails employees saying Twitter needs to remain consistent in its policies, including the right of users to return to Twitter after a temporary suspension. After Roth reassures an employee that, quote, people who care about this are not happy with where we are. Around 11:30 a.m. Pacific time, Roth DMs his colleagues with news that he is excited to share. Guess what? In all caps, he writes, Jack just approved repeat offender for civic integrity. The new approach would create a system where 5 violations or strikes would result in permanent suspension. So he's super psyched about that, about having that power to permanently take people down. Progress, exclaims a member of Roth's trust and safety team. The exchange between Roth and his colleagues makes clear that they had been pushing Jack for greater restrictions on the speech that Twitter allows around elections. The colleague wants to know if the decision means that Trump can finally be banned. The person asks, quote, does the incitement to violence aspect change that calculus? Roth says it doesn't. Quote, Trump continues to just have his one strike. Like he's bummed. Like,
yeah. See, and weren't they trying to make it seem like Jack didn't really know about this stuff too? Like in the first Twitter files, I remember in one of them it was stated that this was like happening behind his back, but then you look at this and this doesn't look like it was happening behind his back. Like Jack was approving these new measures to some extent. Maybe, he was being pressured as well. Handled. I don't know, but he can't just be let off the hook either. And I think even Elon came after him recently about the, CSAM issue on Twitter. So,
well, I think the Twitter Files makes it clear that he was being constantly lobbied by and pressured by his own employees.
Yep. As well as, as we saw earlier, from without.
Yeah, from the outside as well. So continuing, Michael Schellenberger, Twitter Files Part 4. Roth's colleagues' query about, quote, incitement to violence heavily foreshadows what will happen the following day. On January 8th, Twitter announces a permanent ban on Trump due to the, quote, risk of further incitement of violence. This is really important here because as we're about to see in Part 5, they never proved, and they even admitted in their own internal communications back and forth, that they could not get him for incitement of violence, Trump. But so they just banned him and said the risk of further incitement, as if they had proven that, as if they had gotten him for that. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. When
just
you actually
due to the risk.
And also when you look at like Trump's own words in the statement he put out, after the Capitol incident, he denounced the violence. And even before the Capitol incident, if you listened to his entire speech, and I can attest to this because Brent and I were there physically listening to Trump's entire speech, he said, we're going to march to the Capitol and we're going to make our voices heard peacefully. He did say that word peacefully. There was no indication that he was trying to incite a violent riot of some sort. He just said, we're going to go there, use our First Amendment right, and we're going to make our voices heard. And he did use the word peacefully. I heard it with my own ears. You know?
Yeah, I think the original intent for January 6th was to be more something along the lines of what happened in Ottawa during the truckers' protest. It was supposed to be more festive and, you know, joyous and just, you know, celebration of, you know, our gathering there. But it turned into something dark because
here's one of my impressions of it as well. Like I didn't feel like Trump expected it to really turn the results of the election at all. I think he wanted to give that hope, perhaps, that it could have
a big showing.
But what it felt like to me was like he wanted to give his base a last hurrah of some sort to make it seem like, you know, all right, you know, I tried to the very end. You know, but I don't think he expected it to actually go anywhere. I don't think he expected the results to change. I think he just wanted to show them like, hey, I'm willing to fight to the end because I truly think that shady stuff happened. I can't even say what those shady things are, right, on YouTube. And if you go and you talk to people there on the ground and why they were there, none of them were talking about that. They weren't talking about overthrowing the government. They were talking about expressing their First Amendment right, that they wanted to make their voice heard, and that deep down, truly, they felt that
a certain way about things.
That shady things happened.
Yeah.
Can't say those shady things, but that was how they felt, right? And they had a right to express it. What happened, obviously, there's a lot of suspicious things about how it played out, you know, the fact that like backup was I'm not even gonna go.
No, let's just let's continue.
The point is, Trump's own words, you know, he was peaceful. He was not inciting violence. So.
No. Well, and Twitter admitted that. We're about to see that in a minute. On January 8th, Twitter says its ban is based on, quote, specifically how Trump's tweets are being received and interpreted. So this is that like stupid secret, like coded. It's a code, even though it doesn't actually say anything about incitement to violence, and we admit that it's code. We know it. It's magic.
They use that term dog whistle a lot, like that. You know, they're implying something that's not there that you can't hear.
Yeah. But in 2019, Twitter said it did, quote, not attempt to determine all political interpretations of the content or its intent. So they're going against their own statements about what their actual policy is. The only serious concern we found expressed within Twitter over the implications for free speech and democracy of banning Trump came from a junior person in the organization. It was tucked away in a lower level Slack channel known as Site Integrity Auto. So this is the only concern they found expressed within Twitter, was like one person who said, this might be an unpopular opinion, but one-off ad hoc decisions like this that don't appear rooted in policy are, in my humble opinion, a slippery slope and reflect an alternatively equally dictatorial problem. This now appears to be a fiat by an online platform CEO with a global presence that can gatekeep speech for the entire world, which seems unsustainable.
That guy gets it.
Yeah, that guy's the one that donated $451.
That's him. That's the guy. That's the guy. Ligma Johnson.
Liquid Johnson.
Oh,
I just got Ligma Johnson it's a pun, the name.
Yeah, I remember that clicked late for you. I was watching.
Oh, and then I forgot because I just remembered again.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
You're so innocent. Your innocent mind.
How funny. It's like Bart Simpson.
It's like Bart Simpson, yes.
Can I speak to Ligma? Oh my gosh. Okay. Twitter employees use the term one-off frequently in their Slack discussions. Its frequent use reveals significant employee discretion over when and whether to apply warning labels on tweets and strikes on users. Here are some typical examples. And it just shows someone saying, this is an account that we want to review. We're trying to understand the one-off decision here. You know, I don't see any scenario where we could decide not to bounce here. So they would apply the TOS and not even apply it. They would misapply it and ban people or censor people and say, well, this is just a one-off thing, because they could, you know, indiscriminately. That's not the right word. They applied it unequally.
Yeah. So anytime they got a mass report of somebody they didn't like, that wasn't necessarily a violation of the rules, but it still offended their haughty sensibilities on the left, they would nuke it and call it a one-off.
Mm-hmm. Recall from the Twitter Files 2 by Barry Weiss that according to Twitter staff, quote, "We control visibility quite a bit, and we control the amplification of your content quite a bit, and normal people do not know how much we do." That's shadow banning. Twitter employees recognize the difference between their own politics and Twitter's terms of service, but they also engage in complex interpretations of content in order to stamp out prohibited tweets as a series of exchanges over the hashtag stop the steal, hashtag reveal. I'm going to read through some of these. This unknown employee says, "Hey, hope you're doing okay and we're able to get some sleep. Can we, or have we already discussed blocking the stop the steal hashtag? It's furthering fake news in a dangerous way from what I can tell." So Yoel Ross says, "Hey there, we're proactively surfacing that content for review under civic integrity, and it should be blocked from type A head and trends. If you're seeing it in either of the latter two, let me know ASAP and they can fix it." The guy says, "I just saw the hashtag and then did a search on it, and all the content was appalling. So I don't think it's showing up elsewhere. Thank you for all you're doing." And so they're talking about flagging it. This is basically what we learned in Barry's Twitter Files dump, which was what we talked about. They were shadow banning specific hashtags where they wouldn't be trending, or you couldn't see any content that was posted under that hashtag. And then they were also shadow banning accounts where they would go in and what they call visibility filter. So the person doesn't know they're banned, they're still tweeting, but nobody's seeing their tweets.
Yeah, they're basically still doing that with Billboard Chris's account that has not been lifted yet. His account is it's basically treated as like a porn account in a sense. Like if you go
is he still NSFW?
Yeah. So if you don't have your filter thing in your settings like unselected for sensitive content, and you go on Billboard Chris's page, all his tweets are behind a click wall. So he's been tweeting at Elon to try to get that lifted, and I think Mark Changizi is still like that as well. Maybe his was lifted, but he was like that for a while, for almost a year, I think.
I must have him already.
Well, you probably have the sensitive content thing in your settings unchecked. So if that's
I see porn, so I think that's
right.
Well, I do. I mean, not like I look for it,
but it's there.
It's there. But if that's unchecked, then you should be able to see his account normally. But for anyone who does not have that unchecked,
change that.
His tweets don't pop up. You literally got to click past the click wall. So that's another tactic that they have used. To bury
Billboard Chris is one of the only people I've seen them do that for. Yeah, where if you try and retweet him and share his content, any of your followers, unless they have the sensitive content thing unchecked, they can't see it.
Yeah, Mark Changizi, same thing. Same thing happened to him.
Oh yeah. So now it's like some of his tweets.
Oh, you unchecked it?
Yeah, I unchecked it.
Go to Changizi's page. I'm curious if he is still also like that, because he was
not
like
every tweet, but
he was one of the biggest voices speaking out about the lockdown policies, the masks, the mandates, those things, and they came for him heavy.
He looks like he's been deep. No, some of it is still 15 hours ago.
Yeah, he's still got that on there,
and it's just a video of him talking about censorship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so he's still a
porn star.
He's still a porn star.
Which fits because he's attractive.
He is hot. He's a major.
He's married though.
Shout out to Mark.
Okay, we're going to continue.
Go for it.
Michael Schellenberger, he says, Roth immediately DM'd a colleague to ask that they add hashtag stop the steal and the term Kraken to a blacklist of terms to be de-amplified. Roth's colleague objects that blacklisting Stop the Steal risks de-amplifying counter speech that validates the election. So meaning they were only worried that it would risk de-amplifying people who were arguing against it, that were arguing in favor of the election results and using the same hashtag. It's like, we don't want to accidentally de-amplify the people who are using the hashtag to push our narrative.
Yeah,
that's what they're saying.
Also, really quick breaking news, which I just saw on Instagram. James O'Keefe's personal Twitter was just reinstated.
Oh, awesome.
Good.
Yeah, that's good news. So
That
Just
is great
wanted to
news. I'm
break
I'm
that
still
news right
waiting.
here on live.
I'm still waiting for them to bring back Cameron Pasha and Myth Informed.
Yeah,
Those are still
yeah.
banned
And Disaffected still banned.
and
Disaffected and
disaffected.
Michael Rechtenwald as
Michael
well. And
Rectenwald.
Michael Rectenwald.
yes,
Yep.
so people can go watch our conversation with him, which we had last month. And one of the first things Jordan Peterson tweeted when his account was unlocked and he was able to tweet again was he asked Elon to reconsider the case of Professor Michael Rechtenwald. So hopefully they reinstate him as well. Let me see if I'm following James.
Okay, I'm going to continue. Indeed, notes Roth's colleague, a quick search of top stop the steal tweets and their counter speech, meaning they reinforce our narrative. But they quickly come up with a solution. Quote, de-amplify accounts with stop the steal in the name and profile, since those are not affiliated with counter speech, meaning with our narrative. Wow, they're just like making things up to get to do what they want. They're working backwards. Like they're not even following policy. It's just we want to ban this stuff. Let's figure out how to do it. But it turns out that even blacklisting Kraken is less straightforward than they thought. That's because Kraken, in addition to being a QAnon conspiracy theory based on the mythical Norwegian sea monster, is also the name of a cryptocurrency exchange and was thus allow listed. That's just so funny. Like all of the bureaucracy and how to actually block what they're trying to block. Like,
It's so funny. And if they would just, be neutral arbiters of free and legal speech, none of these issues would even be, and this is what they were spending money on at Twitter. They were spending man hours on figuring out how to deboost the specific Kraken ones and allow list the trade Kraken one. It's ridiculous. It's no wonder they were bleeding cash
and getting paid tons of money to just be censorship.
6-7 figure salaries a year.
Yeah, it's crazy. Employees struggle with whether to punish users who share screenshots of Trump's deleted January 6 tweets. Quote, we should bounce these tweets with a strike, given the screenshot violates the policy. Quote, they are criticizing Trump, so I'm a bit hesitant with applying the strike to this user. Again, it's like they were fine with people sharing screenshots of the tweets if it supported their narrative, but you can't share screenshots of the tweets if you support Trump. Like,
right. Insane. Again, it just shows they're in like a different reality where they read reality different than the rest of us. And that's why, they're off in a cult and we're over here being like, well, these people are crazy.
What if a user dislikes Trump and objects to Twitter censorship? The tweet still gets deleted, but since the intention is not to deny the election result, no punishing strike is applied. They all these convoluted justifications for what they're doing. And here you see one of them says, quote, if there are instances where the intent is unclear, please feel free to raise. So, yeah, I think it's probably, think of the man hours, each individual tweet that shares a screenshot of Trump's tweets. They're like trying to figure out, are we going to ban this one or not? Do we like this person or not? Yeah. Around noon, a confused senior executive in advertising sales sends a DM to Roth. The sales executive says, Jack says we will permanently suspend Trump if our policies are violated after a 12-hour account lock. What policies is Jack talking about? And then Roth says, any policy violation. What are you laughing at?
It's like their policies are they make it up on the fly.
Yeah.
Their policy, and it's clear because they just outline it in these Slack channels with these DMs.
What happens next is essential to understanding how Twitter justified banning Trump. The sales exec says, are we dropping the public interest policy now? Roth, 6 hours later, says, quote, in this specific case, we're changing our public interest approach for his account. Go ahead.
These semantic games. It's just, and you see it, and we see it because we're not in the middle of it. We're outside of it. But, when you're in the middle of it and your job is involved, this all makes perfect rational sense to them.
Yeah. The ad executive is referring to Twitter's policy of, quote, public interest exceptions, which allows the content of elected officials, even if it violates Twitter rules, if it directly contributes to understanding or discussion of a matter of public concern. Roth pushes for a permanent suspension of Representative Matt Gaetz, even though it, quote, doesn't quite fit anywhere, end quote. It's a kind of test case for the rationale for banning Trump. Quote, I'm trying to talk Twitter's safety team into removal as a conspiracy that incites violence, end quote. Around 2:30, comms execs DM Roth to say they don't want to make a big deal of the QAnon ban to the media because they fear, quote, if we push this, it looks like we're trying to offer up something in place of the thing everyone wants, meaning a Trump ban. Hold on. That evening, a Twitter engineer DMs to Roth to say, quote, I feel a lot of debates around exceptions stem from the fact that Trump's account is not technically different from anybody else's, end quote, and yet treated differently due to his personal status without corresponding Twitter rules. Roth's response hints at how Twitter would justify deviating from its longstanding policy. Quote, to put a different spin on it, policy is one part of the system of how Twitter works. We ran into the world changing faster than we were able to either adapt the product or the policy, end quote. On the evening of January 7th, the same junior employee who expressed an unpopular opinion about ad hoc decisions that don't appear rooted in policy speaks up one last time before the end of the day. Earlier that day, the employee wrote, quote, my concern is specifically surrounding the unarticulated logic of the decision by Facebook. That space fills with the idea or conspiracy theory that all internet moguls sit around like kings, casually deciding what people can and cannot see.
That's 451 right there.
Yeah,
that's the janitor.
That's 451.
Yeah,
it's Ligma Johnson.
It's Ligma. It's so funny because look at how they're treating Elon now.
Yeah.
They're treating him like an internet mogul who sits around like a king, casually deciding.
Yeah, it was funny. We got Matt Antar in the chat. He said, "Hey, lovelies, what's up, Matt?
Ooh, shout out to
Love
Matt.
you, bud.
Oh, hey, Matt.
Yay!
Good to see you. Sorry, I wasn't.
I see Matt at the New York Young Republicans Gala. He sang the national anthem. Go check that out if you haven't yet. Great job, Matt.
Matt, I didn't know you were a singer.
He used to be an actor. Yeah, that was what he was before he got canceled for not, being woke enough. But hey, now he's singing the national anthem at galas, with
That's
the
amazing.
president's son. So there you go. Moving on.
Moving on. I think we're close to the end of this, and you know what? Depending on
This
how much
one wasn't very long. This one,
Yeah.
the first Twitter files drop was like they took forever.
That's fine. We have a whole other one to get through.
Yeah, for real.
You got to go in 35 minutes or so, don't you?
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to read quickly, then we can talk. The employee notes later in the day, quote, and Will Oramus noticed the inconsistency too, linking to an article for 10 at Medium called Facebook chucked its own rule book to ban Trump. The underlying problem, writes Will Oramus, is that, quote, the dominant platforms have always been loath to own up to their subjectivity because it highlights the extraordinary, unfettered power that they wield over the global public square and places the responsibility for that power on their own shoulders. So they hide behind an ever-changing rulebook, alternately pointing to it when it's convenient and then shoving it under the nearest rug when it isn't.
Yes.
Facebook's suspension of Trump now puts Twitter in an awkward position. If Trump does indeed return to Twitter, the pressure on Twitter will ramp up to find a pretext on which to ban him as well. Indeed, and as Barry Weiss will show tomorrow, that's exactly what happened. There we go.
Yeah, so basically, they totally just decided to ban him based on nothing other than their own personal feelings and the collective vibe of the, Democratic corporate establishment. They decided that, Trump was just too dangerous to have. It's just, this rhetoric is just too dangerous. We can't have it online. And they nuked him. And
They were trying to find reasons to do it, and they were willing to change the rules in a way in which to get it done.
Yeah.
That's what it seems like.
they make the rules up as they go along,
Yep.
basically, is the takeaway is that I'm getting from that one.
And
Yeah,
it's so funny to me because, again, everything they do is a reversal.
Yep.
So now that now that it's owned by Elon, someone they don't like and doesn't push their narrative, now they're like, this is too much power for one person and one private company to have. Oh my gosh. Like,
They're total hypocrites.
Meanwhile, no concern for the New York Times, no concern for the Washington Post and Jeff Bezos, no concern for any of the other examples of problems. It's just Elon is the problem because he's threatening their control over the Overton window.
Yeah, and here's the thing with this whole story is like, you don't have to like Trump to look at this and see why this is wrong, why it's completely against what American values are supposed to be. So it should anger you whether or not you like Trump or liked him at any point. And I mean, look at Matt Taibbi. He's been very critical of Trump. He wrote an entire book criticizing Trump. And even him as a journalist has to look at something like this and admit like this is wrong. Like this is suppressing free speech. It's completely against American values and what the country is supposed to be all about. So it should bother you, and would it bother you if it were Biden? And if it happened to Biden, it would only bother you in that case, but not in the case of Trump. Then I think there's some self-analysis that needs to be done.
Yeah. This is just one of those rare times where we get to see in our lifetime the power change at one company at Twitter, and they get to see the consequences of being inconsistent in their principles and supporting censorship when the people who are censoring are people they agree with.
Yeah.
And now the power has shifted and they're suddenly like, oh my goodness, censorship.
Yeah.
What how much power are we giving this private company? Yeah, exactly. That's what we've been saying forever.
A good comment. He says it's so hilarious. The Twitter is a private company that could do whatever it wants. Crowd from 2021 is absolutely melting down, which is true. It is interesting to see those same people who were using that very reasoning to excuse the people they disagreed with being censored and taken down from Twitter. And now all of a sudden, when Elon starts taking down certain people, and we don't have to get into that, the whole recent fiasco, but we could talk about that after the next Twitter files if we have time. But they're all melting down and freaking out over this and accusing him of all these things. And it's just like, hey, I thought Twitter was a private company and now it's his private company. So why can't he do this? According to your reasoning, it was totally fine before. And now all of a sudden it's not. Like, be consistent, just be consistent.
They can't. It's too hard for them.
No. I just want to say hi because I happened to look over at the chat. Tiny Texan is here. Hello, this is someone I know.
Tiny Texan.
In my real life, offline life, and she has a channel, a cooking channel. You guys should go check out.
Nice.
Really nice to see you. Thanks for joining us. Okay, should we try and get through part 5 on this?
We could try to breeze through it. And
go for it.
Okay. We're gonna go through this quickly and then talk about it. This is part 5 of the Twitter files. This part came out on Barry Weiss's Twitter feed. She says, thread, the Twitter files, part 5, the removal of Trump from Twitter. Again, we're reading through this because I think everybody should read through this, especially since the mainstream media is not covering it. I think every channel should be covering this. Yeah. Barry Weiss says, number 1, on the morning of January 8th, President Donald Trump, with one remaining strike before being at risk of permanent suspension from Twitter, tweets twice. At 6:46 a.m., he says, quote, the 75 million great American patriots who voted for me, America first, and make America great again, will have a giant voice long into the future. They will not be disrespected or treated unfairly in any way, shape, or form. This tweet is very important because, as you'll see as we scroll through this, Twitter went back and forth in their internal dialogue about it, and they were trying to ban him, saying this was incitement to violence. And they started saying, you're going to see, somebody says, well, he's not talking about the very few like rioters, the people who went into the Capitol. He's talking about the 75 million people who voted for him. That's what he says.
Right. Subject sentence.
Yeah.
Basic English. They can't do it right. They have a problem doing it.
No, they can. I think they're trying to find little loopholes and ways that they can interpret it differently.
It's called subconscious substitution and selection of information. And Lobachevsky warns about it. And it happens very frequently in totalitarian regimes.
What's it called?
Subconscious. Well, in this case, it's actually conscious, but subconscious selection and substitution of information. It's when you're so ingrained in a cult or a system of propaganda that your mind will substitute inconvenient facts for lies, and it will screen it out in advance. So they will ignore the fact that the subject of his sentence here is the people that voted for him, and subconsciously they'll make that switch so they can fit it into their the round peg into the square hole, so to speak.
It's just crazy. Thank you for that phrase. I'd never heard that.
It's Lobachevsky, political ponerology.
Okay, 7:44 a.m. To all those who have asked, this is his second tweet that day. To all those who have asked, I will not be going to the inauguration on January 20th.
Was that his last tweet ever?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it.
Tweet, right?
That's it. Okay, so she says, for years, Twitter had resisted calls, both internal and external, to ban Trump on the grounds that blocking a world leader from the platform or removing their controversial tweets would hide important information that people should be able to see and debate. Quote, our mission is to provide a forum that enables people to be informed and to engage with their leaders directly, end quote. The company wrote that in 2019. Twitter's aim was to, quote, protect the public's right to hear from their leaders and to hold them to account. But after January 6th, as Matt Taibbi and Michael Schellenberger have documented, pressure grew both inside and outside of Twitter to ban Trump. There were dissenters inside Twitter. This one is heartbreaking.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Listen to this. This person at Twitter says, maybe because I'm from China, I deeply understand how censorship can destroy the public conversation. Why didn't they listen to that person?
Well, and look at the response. I understand this fear, but I also think that but is key.
Yeah.
I also think it's important to understand that censorship by a government is very different than censorship of the government. The First Amendment in the United States and similar legislation in other countries with similar concepts exists specifically to prevent the government from silencing the people.
That's amazing. This is where you see people, they lose principles. They put ideology ahead of principles because the thing is, I'm a free speech absolutist. I'm pretty sure you guys are. I mean, I believe in free speech. That doesn't mean I just believe in speech that is that like, for example, I'm having trouble putting this into words. There's a difference between what is illegal and what is immoral and unethical. Yeah. And so what these people will often do is say, hey, well, we're not opposing free speech because it's not the government doing it, which is the illegal kind. It's a big private corporation doing it. So that's cool. It's okay. It's not okay. It doesn't matter if it's legal. It's unethical. I oppose that kind of censorship. I oppose the censorship Twitter's been doing for the past few years. And I don't understand people who, I don't know, they don't have that principled position on it. They're more like, well, let me find a reason why I'm a hypocrite. Oh, it's because this one it's not the government doing it, it's Twitter doing it.
Oh, but then when Twitter controls the public square, what can be spoken in the public square, you are the de facto government. I mean, it's the fact that they don't have that sort of self-awareness that they're just, oh, we're a private company, whatever. Like, and they don't have that sort of, the only speech we should be censoring is illegal speech and speech that, directly leads to harm, like, doxing, threats, that kind of stuff. Yeah. And the fact that they don't have it, and this is why they have, they quibble over all this stuff and they go back and forth and they spend countless man hours on it. But because they want to. This is, they want to be able to push their narrative, to manipulate the Overton window. They want to be the arbiters of what can and cannot be spoken. They want that power. They
want that power. They're drunk with power.
Yep.
Tiny Texan says, this is interesting. I think partially it's true. This dissenter is saying maybe because I'm from China, I deeply understand how censorship can destroy the public conversation. And Tiny Texan says, yeah, but they want China's form of government. So, yeah, that's why they they can't really hear that. They're like, eh. Okay, but voices like that one appear to have been a distinct minority within the company. Across Slack channels, many Twitter employees were upset that Trump had not been banned earlier. After January 6th, Twitter employees organized to demand that their employer ban Trump. Quote, there was a lot of employee advocacy happening, said one Twitter employee. Quote, we have to do the right thing and ban this account, said one staffer. It's, quote, pretty obvious he's going to try to thread the needle of incitement without violating the rules, said another.
Which should be his prerogative, right? You should be able to thread the needle of any rule without violating and remain on platform. If their policies are such that, you can say acceptable speech, then that's what should just be there. And if people have a problem with it, if people want to complain, let them have the problem, let them complain. And if they want to leave Twitter over it, then let them leave.
But the problem here, though, is that Brentley, is that it's subjective on whether he even is threading that needle of right. That's up for them in their magic ears to say, oh, this is magic coded language. Yeah. He's not violating the rules, but he's speaking in code to right. What?
He's trying to violate the rules without violating the rules. We have to ban him. What?
He's dog whistling.
What? They don't even hear themselves.
That's so crazy. Okay. In the early afternoon of January 8th, the Washington Post published an open letter signed by over 300 Twitter employees to CEO Jack Dorsey demanding Trump's ban. Quote, we must examine Twitter's complicity in what President-elect Biden has rightly termed insurrection, end quote.
And there we are. They're we see them buying up that insurrection term, which it was not an insurrection. I don't think, you could qualify. You can call it a riot. But there was no insurrection. Nobody was armed.
Nobody had weapons. There was I saw a grandma with knitting needles. Okay.
Yeah, we spoke with grandmas that went inside, and they were adorable and hilarious and not a threat.
They were allowed to leave as well. I remember one of them she was telling us the story of, once they got in and they just walked in, I think the push had already happened. People were in, so they kind of went in with the crowd. And when they were trying to leave, a cop stood in front of them, or one of the, I guess, Capitol Police stood and tried to stop them from leaving. And she confronted him, was like, this is our house. These people work for us. They are our public servants, and now are you going to let me leave? Are you going to stand here, or are you going to let me go? And, he stepped aside and let them walk out. And
ultimately they decided instead of arresting everybody that day, it would be much more effective and much more intimidating to send out the FBI to track every single person down and, have them show up at their door and knock on their door. And
you guys.
Yeah. They like that to spread that chill factor out there. It's oh, you think you drove home? No. Yeah. You're going to get a knock on your door. We drove home with one of our friends who thought it was just so cool that people were going inside, and he went live and was taking Instagram and was inside.
Not very smart. He got arrested.
And he got charged.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they want to spook people. It was a big witch hunt.
My voice is about to go, but I'm going to power through these. Unless Daniel...
you want to...
Yeah, can you read some starting with number 12?
Okay, but the Twitter staff assigned to evaluate tweets quickly concluded that Trump had not violated Twitter's policies. Quote, I think we'd have a hard time saying this is incitement, wrote staffer. Number 13, it's, quote, it's pretty clear he's saying the American patriots are the ones who voted for him and not the terrorists. We can call them that, right? We can call them that, right? She said. And from Wednesday, referring to the January 6th incident, meaning the people who stormed the Capitol. Number 14. Another staffer agreed, quote, don't see the incitement angle here. And then what's this email? This is from Annika. There's a lot there. I see. Yeah, they blanked out a lot of names.
Why did that person type their comment 3 times?
I don't see the incitement of fear. What PC could it be trying to incite fear about? I think we've had a hard time saying this is incitement. Yeah, it's pretty. Yeah. So these are
the ones we just went over.
Yeah.
Let's see, number 15, quote, I also am not seeing clear or coded incitement in the Donald J. Trump.
Wow. This girl doesn't even see the secret magic coded language. She's like, I don't see either.
I don't know what you guys are seeing, but
Annika is a little based.
She's just
secretly based,
not indoctrinated. Wrote Annika Navaroli, a Twitter policy official. Quote, I'll respond in the elections channel and say that our team has assessed and found no violations, right?
Yeah, I guess it's a violation.
For the Donald J. Trump tweet. 16. She does just that. Quote, as an FYI, safety has assessed the Donald J. Trump tweet above and determined that there is no violation of our policies at this time, unquote.
All these people who are sitting here writing these things, just spending all this time going, yeah, there's no violation. We can't, there's just not even coded. I don't know how we could say this is incitement. Well, if you broke down how much they're paid per day to do all this, like, what do you think it is?
It's
crazy.
More than I've probably ever seen
in a lifetime.
Yeah. Number 17, later, Navaroli would testify to the House January 6th committee. Quote, for months I had been begging and anticipating and attempting to raise the reality that if we made no intervention into what I saw coming, people were going to die, unquote. Number 18, next, Twitter's safety team decides that Trump's 7:44 a.m. Eastern Time tweet is also not in violation. They are unequivocal. Quote, it's a clear no vio. It's just to say he's not attending graduation. Yeah, like, what was violent about that tweet? What was incitement about saying I'm not going?
Every tweet, they're just like going over it, being like, what about this one? Can we make this one fit?
It's like, it's violence if you don't attend the inauguration. That's violent. So stupid. 19. To understand Twitter's decision to ban Trump, we must consider how Twitter deals with other heads of state and political leaders, including Iran, Nigeria, and Ethiopia. Number 20. In June of 2018, Iran's Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, I'm saying that wrong, tweeted...
I don't know if you want to actually read that out loud.
I'm trying.
Well, I just say bad things about Israel.
Well, it says that it must be removed and eradicated. That's what it says.
So,
yeah.
This country, I'm like, let me not read it, actually. See, Twitter neither deleted the tweet nor banned the Ayatollah. So
yeah, so he tweets out obvious sort of anti-Semitic, like he calls potentially genocidal threats against the nation of Israel. Twitter leaves it up, no problem, no violation. The Ayatollah is not banned.
Well, we can say the phrase here. I'll say it. He's referring to the country he's referring to, and he calls that whole country a malignant cancerous tumor. That was allowed to remain on Twitter, apparently. Number 21. In October 2020, the former Malaysian prime minister said it was a right for Muslims to, quote, kill millions of French people, unquote.
Wow.
Twitter deleted his tweet for glorifying violence, but he remains on the platform. The tweet below was taken from the Wayback Machine, so it was archived.
Just look at this tweet and compare it to Donald Trump's tweet.
Yeah. Serious.
I'm not going to the inauguration.
Yeah. I will not be going to the inauguration.
Like, the double standard is so stark, you cannot avoid it.
Yeah. Yep. One is literally calling for violence. The other one has nothing to do with it. Number 22. Muhammadu Buhari, the president of Nigeria, incited violence against pro-Biafra groups. Quote, those of us in the fields for 30 months who went through the war, he wrote, will treat them in the language they understand, unquote. Twitter deleted the tweet, but didn't ban Buhari. Number 23. In October 2021, Twitter allowed Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed to call on citizens to take up arms against Tigray region. Twitter allowed the tweet to remain up and did not ban the prime minister. Obviously, I can't read that. It's not in English, but
you know, what he was saying was he was telling his people to arm themselves and, you know, engage in violence against another group of people within his own country.
Yeah.
Are you sure? I think this just says he's not going to the inauguration.
I'm not going to inauguration.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, and also, it's along these lines. Andy Now has covered many times. Antifa calls for violence. They use Twitter to organize their violence and attacks on and journalists and stuff.
Thoroughly documented that
and
stuff.
They stay up.
Well, he did get Elon to remove some of those accounts.
Elon, Twitter 2.0. But
Twitter 2.0.
This is Twitter 1.0.
And him and Elon received new threats and stuff after all that happened. So shout out to Andy for his great work. 24. In early February 2021, Prime Minister Narendra Modi's government threatened to arrest Twitter employees in India and to incarcerate them for up to 7 years after they restored hundreds of accounts that had been critical of him. Twitter did not ban Modi. And there's the headline there. Twitter blocks accounts in India as Modi pressures social media. Number 25. But Twitter executives did ban Trump, even though key staffers said that Trump had not incited violence, not even in a coded way. No dog whistles, guys. Number 26. Less than 90 minutes after Twitter employees had determined that Trump's tweets were not in violation of Twitter policy, Vijaya Gadde, Twitter's head of legal policy and trust, asked whether it could, in fact, be, quote, coded incitement to violence. Oof, they're trying so hard.
90 minutes later, everyone agrees there's no violation. And then Vijaya comes in, she's like, well,
I don't know. He doesn't want to attend the inauguration. It sounds like he wants to attack them.
Is it a code?
It's a code.
Coded. Coded language.
Do we want to read some of her messages?
What did she say?
Thanks. The biggest question is whether a tweet like the one this morning from Trump, which isn't a rule violation on its face, is being used as coded incitement to further violence. If you have any context or insight we should consider, I'm all ears.
Wow.
The use of the term American Patriots, and they will not be disrespected or treated unfairly in any shape or form. This is an interesting question. I'm going to speak with my team to see if we can get reactions from the language and get back to you. I wouldn't rely on a survey. I would worry about how they are perceived externally. So again, she's conjuring
how to do this.
Yeah. A few minutes later, Twitter employees on the scalded enforcement team. Enforcement team suggests that Trump's tweet may have violated Twitter's glorification of violence policy if you interpreted the phrase American Patriots to refer to the rioters.
And yet, we could go back to that first tweet.
75, or was it 72? 75 million. Like, he's clearly not talking about the people who were there in D.C.
This is the change. This is the substitution here.
Yep.
Yeah, he says the 75 million American patriots who voted for me. He does not say the people, the rioters, the people who went in the Capitol. He says the 75 million people.
They're deliberately misinterpreting his words.
Yes. They know exactly what they're doing too.
Vijaya knows. She knows what she's doing. She's the one that came back in here and was like, actually, I want to know who whispered in her ear, because there was probably something else that we don't see here because it's outside of Twitter. Yeah. But she's probably got somebody, or maybe even a team of somebody.
And so Jack knew about none of this too. That's another
also,
thing.
Jack was, out of the country.
I find kind of hard to believe, but I don't know. We'll see. Scroll down.
We'll continue reading.
Yeah, all those are blanked out. 28. Things escalate from there. Members of that team came to, quote, view him as the leader of a terrorist group responsible for violence/deaths comparable to Christchurch shooter or Hitler. And on that basis and on the totality of his tweets, he should be deplatformed.
Really?
Unquote.
Imagine comparing Trump to a mass shooter or Hitler.
Yeah.
Because, and also, keep in mind what happened on January 6th. One person was killed.
Direct.
That was, and she was shot by the government.
Yes.
And 2 people had accidents or other medical complications.
Yeah. One of those people I remember got taken away on a stretcher past me.
These people are acting like it's the genocide, the Holocaust times a million.
They're belittling actual mass murder.
Yeah.
It's disgusting.
It is. It's pretty gross.
how could you even possibly compare these things?
Yeah.
Unless your brain is totally fried and you have severe Trump derangement syndrome.
Yeah.
It's the only
comparing him to Hitler too. Like, go read a history book. Seriously, like this is not the same thing at all. Like, I don't care how much you don't like Trump. It is rather insulting to try to pretend he's as bad as that guy. All right, 29. 2 hours later, Twitter executives host a 30-minute all-staff meeting. Jack Dorsey and Vijaya answer staff questions as to why Trump wasn't banned yet, but they make some employees angrier.
It is such a good thing that Elon cleaned house and got rid of all these skinny, complaining, activist employees.
Get out.
Wow.
Your 4-hour a week, work week, please.
With your yoga instruction on the roof. 30. Multiple tweeps. Twitter employees. I love that term.
I hate that term.
Tweets. So I like it because it's like dweebs.
Is it
almost.
twerp an offensive
tweets.
term? And
I don't know. They're tweeps, Brent.
Keep
have quoted the banality of evil. I don't know if people are familiar with the banality of evil by Hannah Arendt. Go check that out. Suggesting that people implementing our policies are like Nazis following orders. Relays Yoel Roth to
the reversal.
The reversal here is amazing.
Yeah, they are the banality of evil.
Right.
They are. And they're literally switching it around.
Amazing.
Let's see this exchange here. Do we want to read that?
No, I don't think we have to.
Yeah.
It's at the end of 31. Is that
where there's 46 tweets total?
We're at 31. Dorsey requested simpler language to explain Trump's suspension. Roth wrote, quote, "God help us. This makes me think he wants to share it publicly."
Why would you be embarrassed of
why would you not?
transparency and explaining to the public why you suspended Trump?
Why would you not want people to know about that? It's almost like that it's wrong. 32. 1 hour later, Twitter announces Trump's permanent suspension, quote, "due to the risk of further incitement of violence." 33. Many at Twitter were ecstatic. Team DJT is suspended. Oh my God! Exclamation point.
Oh my God. This is just so unprofessional too.
Well, this feels like a piece of history. Yeah, it is. And you guys were on the wrong side.
Wrong side.
It is. Saw the message. Thank you everyone for your impactful work this week, for the discussion and for drafting all these complex assessments. I am very proud to work and learn from you every day. Wishing you a good weekend.
They love it. They love this power.
Yeah, it's very...
They love it. It's so gross.
And congratulatory, quote, "big props to whoever in trust and safety." Wait, let me see. Big props to whoever in trust and safety is sitting there whack-a-moling these Trump accounts. And then someone else says, "Can we get them one of these awesome cards I've heard about?" Definitely some extraordinary acts of awesomeness going on around Twitter right now.
People write like
and
children.
This one, Don Jr.'s account needs to be locked too.
See, once you get drunk with that power, you just want to do it more and more and more.
Yeah, they don't even care. Like, what did Trump Jr. do? Nothing. Like, he's already on your chopping block. You're gonna keep going for more and more now that you have had that taste of it. And like, think about it's like once you can remove the president of the United States, like they feel they can do anything.
And then here we go with the next change. By the next day, Twitter employees expressed eagerness to tackle, quote, medical misinformation as soon as possible.
Yes, and this is when
got a taste of it.
Yes, we absolutely plan to do this in 2021 with the timeline being as soon as possible. COVID is one specific disease. Medical misinformation is a much broader category of harmful content. We've laid a lot of the groundwork for policy and product behavior through our work on COVID and the election. The misinfo policy team in the whatever, along with the folks in health and experience and blah, 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 and their teams, companies now focused on getting us to a place of improved maturity. That's how they refer to their ability to squelch conversations and accounts they don't like. Improved maturity in how our policies are actualized. Ugh, gross.
I wanted to read this comment that was dropped by Dion in the chat. It's a quote from Hannah Arendt, who I brought up earlier about the banality of evil, and it's a great quote. I think everyone should really think about it. The ideal subject of totalitarian rule is not the convinced Nazi or the dedicated communist, but people for whom the distinction between fact and fiction, true and false, no longer exists.
Mhm.
So I think there's more to that quote. Actually, there's a longer version of it, but that I think sums it up pretty nicely.
Yeah, well, that's the idea is they're trying to erode our ability to navigate reality by doing what they accuse us of doing. They blast so much misinformation out there into the sphere, and then they give it the air of authority by laundering it through the New York Times, the Washington Post, CNN, etc.
Yeah, but the main point that Arendt was talking about with the phrase banality of evil is that evil at that scale that we saw in, say, Nazi Germany or in Stalin's Russia, and it happened because of the normal everyday people who took part in it en masse, and either turned away while it was happening and pretended it wasn't, or participated by simply just following what the authorities were saying and just following orders. And it's based on the Eichmann trial. That's where she coined the phrase from, and that was Eichmann's excuse on the stand, was he was saying, I was just following orders. That's the banality of evil. And that's what a lot of this comes down to, is these regular everyday people,
ordinary people,
going along with it because it's what's expected of them, not realizing like they are a part of that grander thing. And then they try to flip it and they make it seem like, everyone who opposes what they're doing, those are the Nazis, those are the totalitarians. It's like, nah, it's you guys.
Well, this one's good. So this is looks like a negative comment.
No, it's not. Read the second half.
Oh, okay. So, quote, for the longest time, Twitter's stance was that we aren't the arbiter of truth, wrote another employee. Quote, which I respected, but it never gave me a warm, fuzzy. Okay, so they want to be the arbiter of truth.
They want to be the arbiter of truth. It gives me a warm, fuzzy feeling to be deciding who gets banned and what's true and what's not.
The very first time I had a temporary ban on Twitter was because I mentioned the potential therapeutic benefit of vitamin C and vitamin D in the context of COVID, and I got accused of medical misinformation. And I was like, this isn't misinformation.
Vitamin C.
Mine was, I tweeted at Pfizer and I told them to go fuck themselves, and that was when I got my first and only infraction on Twitter.
You should have tweeted that at vitamin C. You'd have fine.
Go fuck yourself, vitamin C. Then I would have been okay. They would be like, that is not medical.
Arguing that you want the FDA to come in and start regulating vitamins. Okay, so then she goes on, but Twitter's COO at the time, Parag Agarwal, who would go on to be CEO after Jack left, would later succeed Dorsey, told head of security Mudge Zatko, quote, I think a few of us should brainstorm the ripple effects of Trump's ban. Agarwal added, centralized content moderation, MIO, has reached a breaking point now. Outside the United States, Twitter's decision to ban Trump raised alarms, including with French President Emmanuel Macron, German Prime Minister Angela Merkel, and Mexico's President Andrés Manuel López Obrador. Macron told an audience he didn't, quote, want to live in a democracy where key decisions, end quote, were made by private players.
It's crazy that I'm over here.
That's funny because he's one of those people.
Yeah, but it's like, even a broken clock, right, is right twice a day. But it's like you're agreeing with Macron. I'm like,
I want it to be decided by a law voted by your representative or by regulation, governance, democratically discussed and approved by democratic leaders. And
he's correct.
Good point.
Yeah, it's not wrong.
Merkel's spokesperson called on Twitter's decision to ban Trump from its platform, quote, problematic.
She uses their language.
And added that freedom of opinion is of elementary significance. Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny criticized the ban as, quote, an unacceptable act of censorship. Whether you agree with Navalny or Macron or the executives of Twitter, we hope this latest installment gave you insight into its unprecedented decision. And then she goes on, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, she said, we'll read the last part. I'll read it real quick. How many tweets is that? So from the outset, our goal in investigating this story was to discover and document the steps leading up to the banning of Trump and to put that choice into context. So they're stating this is why we're releasing this stuff. Ultimately, the concerns about Twitter's efforts to censor news about Hunter Biden's laptop, blacklist disfavored views, and ban a president aren't about the past choices of executives in a social media company. They're about the power of a handful of people in a private company to influence the public discourse and democracy. This was reported by all these people she lists.
That's it.
And then, she tells you to sub there. But
The free press.
this is big historic stuff. And like I said earlier, we weren't surprised by it. And none of this was shocking to anyone who was really paying attention and knew that this was wrong to begin with. But it is nice to be vindicated. It's nice to actually see what was happening.
The evidence.
Scenes, to see the evidence and to realize, they knew exactly what they were doing, and other people within Twitter were even pushing back and questioning what they were doing, because they felt in their own, they had a conscience that was working enough to realize, hey, this is unprecedented. Are you sure we should be doing this? And all those people got sidelined, silenced, and Vijaya and these people just interpreted whatever they could interpret in whatever way they could twist it to get what they want done. Had nothing to do with inciting violence or any of this stuff. Really, they just wanted Trump gone. Period.
They worked backwards to get what they wanted. They disregarded their own policy. They're absolute hypocrites, unethical activists. They're activists.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm still, it's not surprising to me either, of course. However, I still just maintain, every once in a while I have a bit of shock that this is where we're at.
Yeah.
That this is where we're at. And that people are ignoring it, that the mainstream media is ignoring it, and that people I know who are still in my old echo chamber, a lot of them probably won't read through any of this stuff.
They might not, but it's all the more reason why we have to keep being factivists.
Yeah. Factivists.
We need to be factivists. If they're going to be activists and they're going to, tout untruth, we need to become people who are really standing up for what is true. Whether, again, you like Trump or not, what is true is true.
And thank God we ended up in this timeline where Elon bought Twitter. I mean, if you could just imagine, if this would continue to have to gone on. Yeah. And we would have just seen more censorship, more bans, until we'd have a completely regulated internet where there would be no place where you could have discussions.
Yeah.
Well, that's really
we wouldn't have seen this if Elon hadn't bought Twitter. And I saw someone tweet this, and of course it's obvious, but this was happening at Twitter. It's also happening at Facebook. It's been happening at Facebook, Instagram.
So Elon's whole strategy, and he stated this before, I've heard him talk about it on Twitter Spaces and elsewhere, is that he feels if he can make Twitter this space of open discourse again, that those other companies will be forced to kind of have to open up as well and go back to compete, because more and more people are going to just choose to spend less time on Instagram and less time on Facebook and more time on Twitter. And we already are, for the last year and a half, I've been spending much less time on those other platforms and more time on Twitter, just because I've had more success growing an audience on Twitter. But now with Elon at the helm, and the fact that I know there are certain things I can say now that I couldn't before, I'm spending even more time into Twitter. I'd rather put my thoughts and stuff on there than onto Instagram, where I'm still shadow banned, or Facebook, where I'm still shadow banned, still restricted, because God forbid I share a meme about Hunter Biden and I get restricted.
We've got a lot more to come too. Who knows how many more of these drops they're going to do. There's at least 6 is still coming. And we have yet to see any sort of exposure of government actors. I'm kind of curious. I would like to see more of that aspect exposed, collaboration between members of the Democratic National Committee, names. I'd like to see all that stuff come out, because that really does reaffirm that this was a First Amendment violation here, that we had government actors collaborating with private industry in order to ban perspectives and specific, tweets and content that they didn't want out there.
Well, really quick.
I'll just say quickly, that was in part 3 of the Twitter files. If you guys haven't seen the coverage of that yet, I did a video on it. Lots of people have done videos on it. Part 3 showed that the government was colluding. Yes. They were meeting. Twitter employees were meeting with the FBI
about bragging about it.
Yeah, and bragging about it. Brad and I called that. We called that a long time ago. We're like, the FBI has their hand in this stuff. We know the 3-letter agencies.
Yeah, I'd like to see the agent. Which I guess it probably goes up to Christopher Wray and his predecessor. But it's we need to have this whole thing needs to stop. We need to get the intelligence agencies in this country are out of control. The media is out of control, and we need some, thank God with a little bit of daylight in here. Now we're starting to see all this stuff coming out. Hopefully it just continues.
Said they had daily meetings with the DNI, FBI, and DHS. Right?
Yeah.
Well, the last thing I want to bring up too is some of the backlash that we're seeing from Elon about this stuff. Like, obviously, I don't know if people heard, but he got booed at a Dave Chappelle show in California and Los Angeles. So that's not
San Francisco.
So
predictable.
But and Chappelle stood up for him. And then there's this whole incident where his location has been being tracked and doxed, and they've been tracking where his airplane has been taking off and landing from. And then someone even stalked a car that was carrying his child in it and blocked them in some way. And then now you have people, these journalists were sharing some of this information, sharing the location of the plane and all this stuff. So he started removing them from Twitter, and now they're trying to accuse him of being like, oh, you're a hypocrite, you're not for free speech and all this stuff. It's like, free speech is one thing, but doxing the physical location of someone who's clearly a major target of people who don't like this person, that's you're crossing into some legal boundaries there, where that could definitely be more interpreted as incitement to violence than anything Donald Trump ever tweeted. So the hypocrisy is astounding.
Or their favorite new word is stochastic terrorism. Which is the idea that you're creating a cultural environment where violence against somebody is tolerated, or not just tolerated, but actually encouraged because it's seen as righteous.
So how are they not doing that to Elon in a sense? Like, whether you like Elon, don't like Elon, you trust him, don't trust him, like, you shouldn't be okay with someone's like child being put in danger in that way. And these are total hypocrites. It's like, I'm a little satisfied seeing them get a boot for a bit and feeling that, like, how does it feel? How do you like it? Where you were immune for all this time and you could post about whatever you want and post all this like actual disinformation crap for years and years and years. And then people like us who were telling the truth were getting shadow banned and booted and censored, and no one gave a crap. So no, I don't have any tears for any of them,
Yeah.
And he'll let some of them back. He was talking about it just being like a 7-day ban for doxing and that sort of thing. He's trying to figure out how that.
He's being much more fair than it's ever been. And they can't even see it because, just blind. Everything's backwards. Everything's projection.
I heard a new term the other day, Elon derangement syndrome.
Oh, no.
Spaceship Mad is the other one I heard.
That's the new one. Yeah, Elon derangement syndrome. Like, it doesn't matter what the guy does or says. There are people who are they're determined to hate this person. They don't even know why anymore,
So thank you guys for hanging out with us today, getting close to Christmas, but we wanted to cover the Twitter files since I think we all agree it's one of the most important news stories to come out in my opinion, in a few years. It's just huge, and more people need to be reading it. I did want to close. I have to run because I have to get ready I'm going to be on Friday Night Tights tonight in about an hour. So I hope you guys tune in. We're going to be talking about Avatar 2. I'm not sure what else, but it should be a lot of fun.
And we have an episode airing tonight.
Oh, you do? What time?
At 8 p.m. So if anyone's interested, it's not live, it's pre-recorded. We pre-record our episodes. It's our episode 92 with Brian Cloudis. Brian Cloudis is a director and producer, and he's actually the one who directed the musical, the show Oklahoma, in summer of 2021. And James O'Keefe starred in that, and as his first theater performance. So that's kind of a big deal. And Brian got canceled by his former theater scene and all of that stuff, and his career was almost ended. And so we talked about that, and then his comeback, He's
another bass guy.
Yeah, he's very cool guy. That was a great discussion, so be sure to check that out. And we have another one Sunday coming out as well. So
I'll put this up on the screen. Two Sisters and Some Yarn put in here where you can find Dangerous Rhetoric on YouTube. You guys go and subscribe to these guys. You can also find them on Twitter, and their handles are there. I want to thank you guys for hanging out with me today and covering this and reading when I was losing my voice.
We love talking to you.
I've got something fun to end on. So Nick Weiser got me into this band recently. Now, I know they're from the 80s, but I just discovered them, so I feel like this is breaking news in my world. Striper, a Christian metal band, And this song is just my feel-good head maker from this morning. We're just gonna listen to a little bit because I know we're gonna get copyright strikes, but here we go.
Isaiah 53:5.
Look at their outfits.
Ah,
The total hair
The
metal.
80s was the peak of human civilization.
Total hair metal. Yeah, the Christian rock, Christian metal subgenre is very interesting. There was a few bands that I listened to in my youth who were much heavier than this and probably would not have been as accepted in a Christian environment, but they did have a lot of Christian themes in their music, so like Norma Jean, As I Lay Dying, bands like that. I think Under Oath, they're another one who had a lot of Christian themes in their music.
I have to go down the whole rabbit hole. So
Yeah.
you just text me who else I need to listen to.
I was happy to see that you were talking about metal on your show at some point because I'm a big fan of metal. I grew up listening to that style.
Dude, you should have Nick Weiser on your show.
Yes, I would love to. We had Paul Masvidal on our show. You should Google him, look him up, and read about him. He's a metal legend. Has his band Cynic, and they basically helped found like a whole new subgenre of prog metal incorporating jazz and stuff like that. And then he was also on a very famous album called Human by the band Death. And Death basically founded two subgenres of metal, death metal. And then later on their sound evolved and they helped found progressive metal. So the guy's a living legend. And we talked to him on our show about like one of the things we chatted about too was what it was like to be gay in the early metal scene in the late 80s and the 90s. Because it's a very macho genre. Yeah. It was kind of an interesting experience for him coming in that scene.
It's macho, but also it's so weird. It's one of these genres that has such a great influence of masculinity and femininity because they look very feminine, like their big hairstyles and stuff.
This is the hair metal stuff, and that was its own kind of subgenre as well, But when you're looking more in like the kind of like thrash metal, like thrash, they were all grungy. Like, yeah, they had the long hair and stuff, but they were messier looking. They wore the jean vests and stuff with the patches on them, and same with death metal and all of that. The hair metal was more like glam,
It's so glam. Okay, just a little bit more, and then we gotta go. Okay.
Oh my God, that's cover. The hell with the devil.
The hell with the devil. Wow.
Flying V guitar, yep. So metal.
Yeah, see, I was not familiar with Striper. They're kind of news to me.
That's amazing. So this song's called To Hell with the Devil. You guys go and check it out. It's an amazing song. Even if you're not a Christian, I think you'll find your head bang into this. And I was not familiar with them either, Daniel. And now I just look because Nick just introduced them to me on this interview. They're currently on tour, but I learned about them after they just came through Texas. So
yeah,
that sucks. But yeah, anyway, thank you guys. Thanks for hanging out. This is Brentley and Daniel from the Dangerous Rhetoric. You guys go and hit subscribe and on their channel. And thank you to the Quartering for dropping by and for the very kind gift.
Yeah, we're going to send him an email.
Do it.
Yeah.
And thank you, Perry, for having us again. We appreciate it. We love talking to you.
Yeah, we'll have you on soon as well.
Yes, I'm going to come on soon.
Before the year is out.
Yeah, if you can, if you can make the time, whatever.
As long as we can play Striper.
Yes, we'll play Striper. Yes, for sure. All right, everyone. Thanks for watching.
Bye. Thank you.
Later.
Thank you to today's sponsor, the Church on the Square of Georgetown, Texas, which happens to be my church. My church is no longer allowed to advertise on Facebook, which is unfortunate because that's how I and a lot of other church members originally found them. They've been told that they violate community standards. There's no details there of what that means, but you guys know the score. Anyway, since they're not allowed to advertise, I'm here to give them a plug. You can find them online at thechurchonthesquare.org. You can also find videos of all the sermons and some other kinds of content on their YouTube page at Church on the Square.
you can also join us. If you happen to be in the Georgetown, Texas area, we meet every Sunday at Ken's Guitars, that's Kenz, Ken's Guitars, right on the Georgetown Square. We meet outside, right on the square. Sometimes, if the weather's nice, you might find us there. You might find us outside in front of Ken's. But if you're local, I hope to see you.